Attacks can't be prevented, but they can be stopped. Modern cyber attackers have already made it inside your network, but you have the upper hand. Find and eradicate threats with extra-hop network detection and response, and shut them out before real damage is done. Learn the advanced techniques attackers are using and how extra-hop stops them with a live attack simulation. Register at securityweekly.com/extra-hop. That's extra HOP.
Managing and protecting the world's grueling number of endpoints, enabling Tanium's customers to see, control, and protect every endpoint everywhere. Tanium's mission is to provide certainty in uncertain times with the industry's only converged endpoint management. Trusted by the U.S. military and the majority of the Fortune 100, Tanium helps manage and protect nearly 30 million endpoints. Tanium, the power of certainty. Visit securityweekly.com/Tanium to learn more. When it comes to cybersecurity, the biggest threats are the ones you never see coming. SecureWorks detects and responds to cyber attackers' ever-changing tactics. We come armed with Taegis, a security analytics platform designed to recognize attacks and stop them before they do harm. SecureWorks, defending every corner of cyberspace. Learn more at securityweekly.com/SecureWorks. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. You can now find us on Instagram. Follow us for highlight reels, giveaway announcements, and more at Sec Weekly. And I think we're also on Mastodon now. Same thing, Sec Weekly, SECWEEKLY. All right, now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW297 because this is episode 297. If you want to follow along and check out the notes, we are making up for a week. We skipped a week last week to do a double length panel on getting some CISO feedback on the Joe Sullivan case. So we got a lot of funding items this week. We've got 18 fundings, 2 acquisitions, bunch of layoffs. So it looks like more than it is. Like, we're not going to talk about all of these individually. Some of these we'll talk about collectively, but yeah, let's jump into it. Guillaume, I think there was a funding that personally hits home for you, if you want to chat about that one.
Yeah, Boost Security, boostsecurity.io just came out of stealth mode with a $12 million round of funding, and they're a local to me company in Montreal. So it's always cool when we have cool security startups, and they're helping companies secure their supply chain. And they've posted some really interesting blog posts this week, so you can check out the website boostsecurity.io. Some really in-depth threat modeling of how things can go wrong when you have code on GitHub specifically, threat modeling the entire thing with attack trees and everything. So some really, really nerdy blog posts, not just some marketing fluff. So highly recommend checking that out.
What do they do?
They do, it's essentially a system that lets you set rules in your CI/CD, right? So it does let you orchestrate a lot of different scanners and create some really advanced rules. They use Rego for creating rules, right? So you can define like how a GitHub repository should be secured, but then you can also define very granularly, what do you do when a vulnerability is detected in code, right? Like, do you block, do you not block? And then you can orchestrate all these different tools together. So it lets you create something that's going to be really powerful without being necessarily blocking to developers, right? Like, so you apply the right level of security when it really matters, as opposed to a lot of the solutions that are more like on off. You turn that on for the entire repo or specific file types, and then you have like limited ways of notifying. So it's super flexible. I've tried it out, and so far I'm loving what I'm seeing. It's super simple to set up, right? You connect it to GitHub, set up some GitHub actions, and there you go. You have all the data from things like Dependabot, SAS scanning, all these different tools together in the same interface, and then you can start sending these notifications to your devs via different mechanisms. The one I prefer is when they submit a PR, right? Like, you block that or not block it, but inform them. So yeah, very flexible package and cool Montreal company.
Very cool. Bishop Fox is in the news again. They've extended their Series B funding to 129 million. I think 46 of that is new funding. It's a trend we've seen a lot. Instead of raising entirely new rounds, they just extend the existing cap table. It's going to be dangerous if I get into trying to use these terms without Mr. Shields here to correct me. But yeah, it's an interesting case. We've seen a few cases of this where a well-established company, Bishop Fox being primarily a consulting company, they do pen tests, security assessments, PCI assessments, stuff like that. Traditional consulting company building a product and raising money to build that product internally. So they built this. It's not exactly external attack surface management. It's external attack surface management mixed with consulting, basically. So their product Cosmos will go out just like any other attack surface management product and find gaps and issues and things like that. That your traditional external vulnerability scanners might miss, because you don't exactly know all the right input to put into them. There's a lot of assets scanned by attack surface management products, that like subdomain takeovers, stuff like that, a scanner you point at an IP address would not necessarily find. And when those findings come through, where they throw in their services special sauce here is, that they'll do all the prioritization for you. They'll look into them. They'll actually do mini pen tests on individual findings that come up, so that basically saving you that work. Obviously, it's going to cost you more because services are mixed in with the automated product here, than an attack surface management product that where everything's on you to go through the false positives, do the validation and stuff like that. But still, a very interesting model. I think especially in organizations where you don't want to hire a full-time attack surface management person to just go through all those results. Very interesting that they're still raising money for this and still growing it.
Yeah, and extending a previous round with the current market conditions probably a great idea. So looking forward to see where that goes.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that. Apiro announced a $100 million Series B. I think. So it's interesting. I chatted with them. I was at LasCon. I did a keynote at LasCon in Austin, Texas, and Apiro was there. They were one of the sponsors of that conference, and they had a booth there. And I was chatting with them, because it was Palo Alto's, both Palo Alto and CrowdStrike have been trying to do acquisitions, and just it seems like in this market nobody can agree on valuation because the valuations have changed so much. Like in the public market, we saw as much as like an 80% dip in market cap and valuation, for like SaaS companies, which isn't direct line to security valuations, but certainly, I think people are expecting to get big discounts on what the valuations used to be. I think I did some math and said, if everybody got a 70% valuation discount, we would go from having like 55 unicorns in security to 3. Like it's that big of a difference. So Apiro was one of those. Long story short, Palo Alto, the rumors were they were trying to buy Apiro. Apiro said nope, when they couldn't decide on an amount and decided to raise instead. And yeah, this is another shift left product, AppSec, developer facing product here. I believe Apiro. I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, it's it's focused on application security and securing the CI/CD pipeline. It's a little bit more than that, and they go into it a little in more depth in the article. But it's definitely one of those. Let's find the vulnerabilities and contextualize them before we get everything into prod. So I have heard of them before. This is a big round for what's been out there in the last month or two. So kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, $100 million Series B. That's a serious round there. Yeah, that's a very healthy
That's
size.
serious round, and it's an actual round, just like we were talking about. This isn't just an extension. So
exactly. Yeah. The next one puzzles me a bit. $70 million round for a Web3 protection company. A company that's trying to help stop crypto-related fraud. Like this just seems so. First of all, it seems like a tough market to be in because once crypto's gone, it's gone. Like that's how the blockchain is designed. Like there is no recovery in most cases. Unless I mean, we've seen the U.S. government recover some stuff, but they can pull legal strings that private companies and individuals just can't pull. But I don't know. And with the market downturn, I guess it's kind of surprising. At the same time, like, I guess if you're still in business, if you haven't gone out of business after all the hijinks that have gone on, yeah, you should be concerned about fraud in crypto, right?
I wish I remembered who posted that, but I saw a tweet in the last 2 days. Someone said, "I just started a new startup that detects if something related to crypto is fraud. We say it's AI, but it just always says yes."
Yeah. The code for that is very simple. It's 3 lines of code.
Yeah, but that being said, who knows like how long ago they started working on that round, and if it would have happened if they started this week, right?
Yeah, this is a 4-year-old company at this point. 3.5, 4-year-old company. So they've been around for a while already.
And they have forensics as well as transaction monitoring, and I think like the forensic space, there's definitely a lot of action there. Try to see who's stealing those hacked funds, air quote hacked or not, we don't know. Who's using them, who's parking them for 6 years, and then trying to move them somewhere and getting arrested. So I think the forensics part of it is going to remain a pretty big deal as long as cryptocurrency is used. And I don't think it's going to stop being used, right? Otherwise, how are we going to pay for ransomware?
We can't put ransom extortion companies out of business now. But yeah, it's I think almost every one of these we've seen raising funds does both the prevention and the recovery side of things. And it makes sense, right? Like if you're going to engage with a company to prevent fraud, there's a good chance you're going to need them to run investigations and stuff like that when you fail to prevent it, right? And kind of what boggles my mind here is like a lot of the issues we're seeing with fraud are almost business architecture, like legal structuring of the business. If you look at a lot of these crypto exchanges, none of them are based in the U.S. I don't know if we're going to talk about FTX, but they were based in the Bahamas. So I don't know. Like you can't build a fraud prevention product when the CEO of the crypto exchange is the source of the fraud. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Yeah, Island was interesting. So story number 5, interesting to see Island extending their Series B. Already the rounds that we've seen from the enterprise browsers here. I'd be kind of interested in your take, Guillaume, on some of the enterprise browsers here. I don't know if you looked at Talon or Island. I want to have briefings with these companies because it's one of those things where like the amount of money going into them, like they already have over $1 billion valuations. They're already unicorns and they've been out of stealth for like less than a year. And to me, it looks like a niche product at best. It looks like another Bromium to me where I can see some niche use cases, but Chrome is going to be good enough for most companies. So I have a hard time seeing these guys conquer the good enough of Chrome to actually sell a browser to enterprises.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Chromium because I was looking at the article and the numbers, and that was exactly the company I thought of. But I think any like enterprise that has software like DLP on the endpoints, laptops that are used to access a lot of customer data, things that can't be automated on the server side and kept away from end user computing devices, we'll probably be interested in having like a safer, more controlled, like it's not security, like, oh, Chrome has more bugs than this. I think it's more how much you can control it. And I think there's definitely going to be some interest there. I know it would have solved some problems I had in the past, right? Like I had to deploy like VDI environments with browsers that could reach something that could not be reached from anywhere else, because we wanted to be able to control what would happen in that browser. So I've done things in the past that could have been solved by this. So that's why I think it might work out for some of them, but I don't see a future where there's like 5 of them. And also, I think it's not unlikely that someone like Microsoft could, get in the game and have like a version of Edge that's going to do some similar things.
So how do you buy this? Do you buy enough licenses for contractors for like specific insider threat type use cases, and then like what price point makes sense? Like $10, $30 an endpoint for this per month?
Yeah, I have no idea on the pricing, but for companies that are deploying like full blown VDI environments for contractors or for people working remotely, that's also super expensive, right? You think you're saving, it's not a $2,000 laptop, it's just a VM, but then the IO behind makes you buy a $3 million storage array. So I'm not sure, but I think maybe it's going to be like enterprise customers willing to pay pretty significant amount, and they're not going to have 15,000 customers. We'll see.
Yeah, so that might be the piece that I'm missing here is I don't realize how common it is, perhaps for companies to be using VDI to solve the same problem. Yeah, so if that's
I can tell you in banking, that's definitely something. Banking investment companies, it's something that's there's so much regulation around monitoring what happens. There's so many apps that are kind of legacy and integrations with third parties that are done over the web, and it's kind of a mess. And I feel like when you have a solution that helps an existing mess be less messy by just being bolt on, for better or for worse, it sells more easily. But that's why 40 years later you have 62 security products instead of something that was engineered to be secured from the ground up. But as far as convincing people they need to buy it, I think it'll be easier.
Yeah, interesting. So another one of the other larger rounds here, Achilles, which is kind of hard to say. Achilles. So the letter A and then the word keyless raised a $65 million round, Series B, and looks like going after kind of like the HashiCorp,
Vault.
kind of Vault kind of product, aiming at DevOps folks for managing credentials and keys and things like that in your production environments. And it says reimagined, but I haven't had time to dig into the product very much. So
you haven't had time to reimagine how it could be so different. I haven't used it. Definitely, people are looking for solutions for secret management that are that work on multiple clouds and data centers. Not every company is using just AWS or just GCP and able to use the features that are built to the cloud providers. That's why HashiCorp Vault is so popular. So I don't know how this is better or different.
Katie, are you familiar with these guys at all?
I believe we took a briefing with them a few years ago, but I don't remember all that much about them specifically, unfortunately, because it has been a few years. They do have a good board of advisors. They've got some real power behind them. And this is definitely, secrets management, especially with DevOps and how things are moving there. It's an area of concern for a lot of companies. So it's not, the sexy stuff that we're talking about in other areas. Secrets management is, is pretty foundational stuff, but it's incredibly important. And I think the points that Guillaume raised are obviously spot on here, because there have to be competitors, there have to be alternatives, and there has to be something that makes it a lot more manageable for companies, because secrets management is not easy. Managing your keys at scale is not easy for companies. So, it'd be interesting to see that, they're a few years old at least. So we'll see what happens. It's not going to be, front page news or anything, because again, this is not a sexy topic in the security industry, but it's a really important foundational, I think.
I think what's going to drive the difference is if something can be easy enough to use properly, so that companies that are not, super engineering driven companies that have been using HashiCorp Vault for the last 6 years can start using that, then I think it's going to be a big win, because there's still a lot of people putting secrets in things that are not meant for storing secrets at all, right? So I think there's a pretty big market to be captured, and since people seem to like having a solution that's multi-cloud, why not have like the most user-friendly thing, even if it's not the most powerful? If you get a lot of people to use that instead of nothing, I think then that's a win for security overall.
Yeah.
So I got to give them kudos. It took me about 10 seconds after hitting the website to get to the datasheet PDF, which answered pretty much all my questions. So huge kudos for that. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to hit a company's website, not be able to get answers to simple questions like, how does your product work? What does it integrate with? That kind of stuff. But definitely looks like they're going after like HashiCorp Vault. In fact, they have API compatibility with HashiCorp Vault OSS. They make it easy to import secrets from Kubernetes Secrets, AWS Secrets Manager, Azure Key Vault, or HashiCorp Vault. And they have a password manager as well, like a human-facing password manager. So they're going after that as well. So it looks like they've got a pretty big platform product that covers a lot of ground. So, and we see the consumer side of password managers headed in the enterprise direction also. So it's going to be interesting seeing, these guys are going to be competing with 1Password and a bunch of those products in the near future, if not already, right? And they've got the SDK where you can, instead of putting secrets in scripts and things like that, you can pull it in at runtime. All right. Any of the other funding items here that leap out at either of you? Because I think I've covered the ones I want to cover, and I want to get to some of these other stories. So.
Yeah, let's move on. Lots of funding, which is good to see, but let's move on.
And international stuff as well. Like, these aren't all dollar signs here. There's some euro symbols here. There's a pound symbol. So it's always interesting to see, the security market, like Guillaume pointed out, number 12 in here is in Montreal. Some of the smaller ones here, are various places in Europe and the UK. So it's always cool to see that as well. Watch how the market grows internationally. So Splunk acquired a company called Twinwave Security. This is not a company I'm aware of, so I'm assuming they're pretty early stage. I haven't seen Splunk do an acquisition in a while here, but looks like they're looking to kind of plug it into the Phantom Soar stuff that they already have, and that's kind of the rationale behind the acquisition.
Well, I think there's a huge move in the market when we're talking about attack surface management and even cybersecurity asset management, where companies are looking at this wealth of data and trying to figure out what to do with it. And Splunk has always been a leader. But the innovation there hasn't, or the lack of innovation there has been problematic. But Splunk is so entrenched in so many companies that it's hard for an organization to move away from Splunk if they're a Splunk customer. But the capabilities aren't where companies need to be. If Splunk's just looking, it's just the old stuff that they have. So I think this is really smart on their part, because as painful as it is to move away from Splunk, there has been some talk in the industry about needing more from that data, needing more from that type of capability, because it's not just enough to be having that data. So I think this is really smart on their part, because there are a lot of companies coming in that are making claims of being viable competition to Splunk, and so companies are scaling back where they can.
And on the Soar side, I think this is definitely like one of the use cases that pretty much everyone who gets a Phantom, or I don't know how they call it now, on the Splunk side, is let's let people submit phishing reports and analyze that and work on that. But it's never like a 5-second process like it should be. So it seems like Twinwave really focuses on that. So
not with the old Soar tools, which is why we have a Soar V2 market
exactly.
now. With the likes of Rapid7 has one, Insight Connect, I think. Tynes is becoming extremely popular now. All no code, like you don't have to dive into the Python or anything like that. And we've had people on the show. We've got I'm blanking on his name now, but from Brooks Running, I think, had him come on a couple times, and he had that experience of where setting up that initial proof of concept phishing enrichment Soar workflow, he said, took him like months on a original generation Soar platform, and then like a few hours in Rapid7. So
yeah, the old ones, I felt like it was almost never easier than just doing it on your own in Python, which is not a great value prop. Yeah.
No, because most people don't have that capability in-house.
Yeah, and it wasn't easier, so it was like, okay.
I often say products can absolutely have negative value, and you need to monitor them. Like if it takes you more time and resources to do it using a commercial product than, like Guillaume just said, writing a Python script, it's time to ditch it, or find something better. And we see a lot of that
where the market is going, and they're smart to react this way, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they're feeling that. I'm sure they're losing customers to some of these next generation ones. I hate that I just called them next generation, though.
It's current gen by the time you call it next gen.
So Norton LifeLock rebranded as Gen Digital. I'm not sure anybody really cares.
Well, I mean, it's the second mention of LifeLock in this podcast episode. You didn't expect that.
So they got rid of that brand. They killed the brand, which I can't blame them. LifeLock has had so many lawsuits and just crazy stuff go on. I don't blame them for wanting to ditch the brand at this point. But they merged with Avast, which Avast is already, consolidated a few of the old school first gen AV companies. And now they're Gen Digital. And I think this is just the consumer stuff. I'm not sure that they have any enterprise stuff, because all the enterprise semantic stuff got split out by SDG, the PE company that acquired them. And at the same time, they laid off 15%, a quarter of their workforce. So 1,100 people. I think that's the biggest cybersecurity layoff we've seen yet. And I think all the layoffs were in Czech, on the Czech side. So mostly almost sounds like they just shut down the original Avast. But yeah, this includes everybody from Norton, Avast, LifeLock, Avira, AVG, Reputation Defender, and CC Cleaner. All that's in this makes up this Gen Digital company now. But yeah, I mean, just trying to stay alive. The OG AV companies are not having a great time of it. Other layoffs, Code 42 laid off 15% of its workforce. Richard Stinnen has a nice kind of roundup of all the cybersecurity layoffs this year so far. We've covered most of them. And just alongside, Meta, I don't know if the Amazon layoffs has happened yet, but Meta laid off 11,000. I forget how many Twitter has laid off at this point. And Amazon was rumored to be laying off 10,000 as they look to hire 150,000 people, I assume, for the warehouses to get ready for the Christmas season. But those are temporary workers.
Yeah, they're running a lot of ads for those, so it seems like heavy hiring season on the warehouse side. But yeah, these layoffs, they're definitely piling up. I think I saw some stats where, of course, by percentage, it's not the case. But if you just look at the raw numbers, there's currently been more tech layoffs in terms of people being laid off than during the original .com boom. So that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, these companies are so much bigger now, though, right? Like,
yeah, that's why I'm saying in percentage it doesn't mean the same thing, but it's still an impressive amount of people. So if you have any roles open or anything like that, like make sure you publicize them as much as possible, because the upside is there's going to be a lot of really good people that are available now.
Well, and that is the upside is a lot of cybersecurity companies are actively hiring. Hiring is still very difficult. So hopefully this makes it a little easier for companies that have had recs open for a long time, to finally fill those recs, because this is an industry where typically can be challenging to get people. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit easier on the hiring side. So that let's see, new products. 22 and 23 here. The only reason I mentioned Harmonic is because I know we have folks that follow us that spend a lot of time analyzing and following startups. And there's a new startup called Harmonic, Harmonic.ai. Looks like they're looking to take on the likes of CB Insights, Crunchbase, PitchBook, all these companies you go to do research on startups. I think one of the interesting things that I saw that they're doing is they're actually tracking employee growth, which currently the only way I know of to do that is to scrape the company page on LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't even offer this via API. It's something that I've talked to quite a bit with Richard Stinnen that's really annoying is, because LinkedIn has most of the tech workforce, I'd say like within 95% of all the entire, at least the US, and European tech workforce. I know other countries use Facebook more, different cultures use different platforms for this, but yeah, it's really tough to do because tracking employee growth is a good way to track company growth also. It's a good good indicator for that. So I imagine
Harmonic, channel indicator.
Yeah, I imagine Harmonic is doing the same thing the rest of us are doing, and they're just scraping LinkedIn. I don't know what LinkedIn's EULA looks like, but yeah, hopefully they don't get shut down for that, because there's a need. I don't know why LinkedIn doesn't just put it in their API and charge. But yeah. So something we talked about in the last interview with Dan, talking about privacy. We'll leave the Microsoft one for later, but Apple and Google both got hit with basically the same class action lawsuit where they had features in their apps that said, do not track my location or do not track me in apps. And Apple basically interpreted that as do not track me in third-party apps. And they continued to track people and gather data in their first-party apps. And like a lot of stuff, like what they did in the App Store, what they searched for, what they tapped on, how long they looked at something before moving to a different screen. Like it's very detailed activity data from your iPhone.
Yeah, I feel like Yeah, it's got to be like all of iOS, but they've been pretty aggressive with disabling, not disabling, but making it opt-in to have cross-app tracking and all that, which has impacted, the likes of Facebook and so on type of advertisers. But because they don't share the data, it's like when it happens on the first-party software, then it's not doesn't count as tracking. So I don't really know that much about the details of the lawsuit, but I just find it a little bit distasteful that now they're shoving a lot of ads in the App Store, for example, on products. You pay $1,500 for a phone, and now you have ads in the App Store, but they're not coming from a third party. Whereas before, Facebook was probably the biggest source of app install apps, because you could get very, very targeted distribution. But it's like while I'm very happy they're doing the privacy focused thing of restricting tracking, I'm not super happy that they seem to be doing that to capture that revenue for themselves by now becoming the market for these app install ads. So I think that's all part of that, and like it might be legal, but doesn't mean that it's nice. It's like when you buy a TV and there's ads on it and just paid like $3,000 for a TV. Like I just find that completely distasteful, and I hope at some point the market just does something about it.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look for a company who one of their pillars, that they stand on is privacy, right? They've been big on that for a long time. They've been selling that point, and it's bad for them to get caught doing something like this because it's a blow to that pillar, that privacy pillar that Apple has.
It is, but it's become so normalized in our society that people just accept it. And it's never going to stop because it's accepted. It makes money for businesses. It hurts consumers. And in the US, we're really not that concerned about it, unfortunately.
And
it's predatory.
I think we all know folks who have switched to iPhone specifically for privacy features, though.
Yeah, I think that's true, but the amount of money they make off of it, this is not going to stop. It's not going to stop unless it's regulated, and we don't have the same kind of history that they do in other countries. And as a result, we're less sensitive to it, we're less concerned about it, and it's going to continue until there is some sort of regulation. But I don't believe that in this country we're going to get there, because there's a lot of opposition to any sort of regulation like this. When there's too much lobbying and there's too much money. But there is an ethical and a moral obligation, I believe. But, I know that there are people who will argue with me on that. But I do think there's a legal or a moral and an ethical obligation to be more privacy minded.
Which is why we've got to have the legislation, right?
I'm crossing my fingers. I'm not hugely hopeful that anything even as close to GDPR is going to pass in this country. I think the CCPA is the closest that we have. I don't think a federal law is going to come close to that. And CCPA, the legislators in California, are already opposing the ADPPA for that reason, because it is a watered down version of what they have.
For a company like Google or Apple, I don't think it has to, because they've got so many customers in California. It might as well be federal. Like I can't see them making a version of their products just for California, right?
I can totally see legislation though coming in and just making it harder for everyone else, right? Like those that are big enough to not share data because they've got all of it, it's just going to cement their position. So I wonder how a law could go about restricting the data like at the collection level instead of more at the sharing level. That would be interesting. But like every time you add more regulations, typically the big ones are able to abide by it, within a few months. They've got lots of money, lots of people to throw at it. They find these loopholes, and then the smaller ones get hurt.
It's
So
the loopholes. Yeah, for sure. It's the loopholes. The ADPPA does actually address what kind of data can be collected. And I was just over in Europe for the Gartner conference, and every time I got on a website there, I was asked. And I could say no, and I could still get onto the websites. That doesn't happen as much over here because we don't have those protections in place. But even what the limitations are in the ADPPA proposal provide loopholes, quote, under certain circumstances, with certain conditions. So the big guys are always going to get around it, and the big guys are always going to be the most egregious abusers because they can.
So what you're saying is we should all get VPNs and browse the internet through Ireland?
Don't get me started on VPNs and privacy, man. We don't have another 2 hours.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. So yeah, speaking of smartphones, because we didn't talk about Google as much in there, but similar thing where when you check the box that said don't track my location, Google was still tracking your location. So another big settlement there, $391.5 million settle. Not big for Google, but settlement with 40 states. So something I was experimenting with is also story number 31, where I knew these minimalist phones and devices existed, but I decided to pick one up. So I've got the Light Phone 2 here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that on camera, but for people listening, I'm trying to hold it up to the camera. But you can go to thelightphone.com and see what it looks like. It's tiny, it has an e-ink display, and it's designed to make you not want to use it, which the short version of my review is absolutely, I hate it. I tried using the podcast app, and it works, but the app will just crash in the middle of a podcast, and I have to go back, relaunch it, and find where I left off. Absolutely makes me not want to use it, but it's a 4G phone. It has apps to do directions, hotspot. You can play music. You can put notes in there, leave voice notes because typing on it is awful. But it does what it says on the tin. It makes you not want to use it, but it still gives you kind of a functional modern phone where you can text and call and do some basic necessities. No web browser, anything like that. But yeah, so number 31 is a story on a school, small boarding school in Massachusetts, I believe, where all the students were given one of these light phones, and they had to kind of turn in their smartphone. And the idea was to, kind of experiment, see if they could make kids more present in classes and things like that. And a lot of students, I don't know how honest the students are being here, right? And these are high school age students, say that they like it. They kind of like not being worried about what people are posting on Instagram, for example.
Yeah, or getting constant notifications vibrating somewhere, and it can be stressful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's stressful, but it's also addicting. So it's like you kind of get pulled into the cycle. So yeah, I'm going to see if I can get maybe some of my kids to try this out for a week to swap devices and just see what they think. It's $30 a month, comes with its own SIM and service that I think is based on AT&T's network. But yeah, I'm always trying out new gadgets, and that happens to be one of them. So some interesting trends here. I think it's interesting. Twitter's kind of a special case here, so it's not exactly fair to call this a trend yet. But it's interesting that some key executives, including the chief compliance officer and the chief information security officer, quitting at Twitter, is seen as a worrisome trend by the FTC. yeah, maybe that means, I don't know if it necessarily means the CISO has more power. I don't know. How do you see this, Guillaume?
Well, I think, for the regulators, it's obvious that there's chaos, and when there's chaos, there's risk. So I think it's just that, right? Like, there's so many things changing at the same time, so many people leaving. How are they going to be able to do everything that they did before and report on the stuff that they did before, right? Something's going to break there, right? Like, we've seen from a public facing point of view, we've seen like notifications get completely broken, SMS two-factor get completely broken. So why would these internal processes that we don't see still be working fine? I think that's doubtful. So, hopefully you never sent anything super critical via DMs.
Yeah, I might need to review those.
Well, yeah, the good news is you can't delete them. So, well, you can, but when someone messages you again, the whole thread reappears. So maybe if both people delete the thread on their end, it gets deleted, maybe not. So OPSEC doesn't work retroactively, right?
I don't know if it's a rumor, if it was officially announced, but they're talking about DMs being end-to-ending encrypted being a thing in the near future. So that would be a rare win for Twitter.
Yeah, but they've been talking about that for what, like 8 years, and so now that they don't have a single developer left, they're going to do it. I have my doubts.
Yeah, they're talking about speaking of not having developers left, they're talking about bringing Vine back. Yeah, and some of the original Vine founders are like, not sure how good that it's going to be to fire up that code after 10 years, but go for it. But I mean, I don't want to waste too much air on Twitter, because it's probably all changing right now as we're talking about it. So not sure there's a whole lot of value in spending too much time on it. But Katie, are you on Mastodon now?
I am not. I do have to check that out, though, because I am no longer on Twitter.
Yeah, I knew you were no longer on Twitter, so I was curious if that coincided with you creating an account on Mastodon, or if you were just done with Twitter.
I'm just done with Twitter. It's TBD. If there's another platform that has good reach, that is, valuable to the community, to the security community. That's the only reason I was on Twitter in the first place. It certainly wasn't for personal reasons. It was for professional reasons. Then I definitely explore it. But, I just can't support what's going on at Twitter right now. And if something else steps up to take its place, I am more than open to it.
Yeah, migration of InfoSec Twitter to Macedon is actually pretty impressive. I think there's like 18,000 accounts on InfoSec.exchange, or maybe it even crossed 20,000. And then what's the other one? IOC.exchange is at like 15,000 or something like that. So there's something like 50,000 people on the two major InfoSec related instances, and then there's people on the bigger, more general instances, and then a bunch of people like me just running our own instances. So getting good engagement there, like good discussions, good content. So honestly, haven't really been paying attention to Twitter.
Yeah. I thought I was gonna hear a ration from my PR person when I told her, and she was like, "Oh no, good call. I deleted my Twitter too." And I was like, "Okay." I thought I was about to get in trouble.
Well, so one thing I don't want to do is to delete it, because then I'm afraid someone can come in and create an account with the same username and then start impersonating me. So I don't think I'll ever delete it, but it's just I'm not using it much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly have a ton less engagement over there, and I'm getting more and more on the Mastodon side. I'm also on infosec.exchange, which took me a bit to learn, like with it decentralized. It's a bit confusing on like how you reply to things that are posted on different instances. Like, people will send me links to things in Slack and places like that. When I click them and they open on that instance, I can't reply there. I have to actually copy the URL, paste it into search on infosec.exchange, and then I can reply to it my instance. So
Oh, that's
things like that
interesting.
are it's a
Yeah,
little
it's
little
only a
funky.
it's a problem when you receive a link. Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like not the best UI, but when you're in your timeline, though, it's actually pretty sleek. And now with version 4 that just
it's very
got
similar.
released, you can follow hashtags, which is pretty cool, right? So you can follow the threat intel hashtag or InfoSec hashtag, because since there's no federated search, it's kind of hard to discover stuff sometimes, especially if you're on your own instance. Like I don't see the local timeline of infosec.exchange, for example. So that's one thing where I was thinking, well, if I was on that instance, I would see a lot more traffic. But now with the hashtags following, it's better. And then the problem you just mentioned, like replying from somewhere else, when you want to follow someone, it's also much easier to just type their username in your search box and follow from there than clicking follow on another instance, because then it prompts you for your username, and then there's an exchange between the two instances, and it's kind of slow especially if one of the two instances is having issues, which is the case for a lot of them right now because there's just too many new people. So yep, that search box or URL box, or I guess it's both, is your best friend if you're getting started with Mastodon.
And I would bet, if the folks over there are smart, they're watching the market, they're watching what's happening, and they're not going to sit on this. They're going to innovate, they're going to adapt.
But it's open source. I think there's only 2 full-time developers on this, so I think it's already very impressive what they've made, and they're very responsive. So there's a GitHub issue where we're discussing like right now, you need to add a TOTP two-factor before it allows you to add security keys, but it supports multiple security keys, right? So what I did was I added my keys and I just deleted my TOTP. Like I didn't keep it anywhere, and they're very engaged, but it's open source and there's only so much a single person can do in a day. So, but maybe that will grow, right? Because now it's going to get like such an influx of users. The one place where I think there's going to be some improvement too is mobile clients. There's a lot of mobile clients that hadn't been updated in like 18 months or whatever, but now that there's a lot more people using them, maybe there's more incentive for developers making these. So we'll see. Like I don't think it's going to take a huge chunk of Twitter out, but if it takes all of InfoSec Twitter out, I don't like personally. It meets my needs, and it's actually a nicer experience in many ways. It reminds me of the forum days. No algorithm shoving stuff in your face. You just have the threads of the people and the hashtags you follow, and so it is nice.
Yeah,
I will check it out. You've sold me.
All right, I'll collect my commission.
your commission from the open source sale.
Exactly.
I bring it up because with all the InfoSec people on it, of course, researchers are looking at it, and some security issues and bugs are. We're probably going to see a lot of updates of, and we already have been seeing some updates of Mastodon. So like the instances that a lot of people are using are just running on people's hardware. Like volunteers are just running these instances. Kind of like the old days of. This isn't SaaS at all. Almost the old
right,
days
like
of running.
Jerry Bell, who runs InfoSec.exchange, has thrown some massive hardware at this. So if you're using those instances, maybe send your $8 to your admin instead of Elon.
Yeah. The other trend I wanted to mention here, that again, like Twitter, this could be more of an anomaly than a trend, but I thought it was interesting seeing what obviously looks like FTX employees trying to shovel money out of regulators' reach. Trying to pull stuff out of the company before it gets grabbed by the bankruptcy process, which they're Chapter 11, not Chapter 7. So that means restructuring, not liquidation. But it was funny to see them say, "Oh, we got hacked and a bunch of money went missing." $200 million or whatever it was. But I can't imagine that holding up and becoming much of a trend. There's my dog ate my homework equivalent, right?
There's a few Twitter threads and Macedon threads going around about like contents of the bankruptcy filing, and you don't have to be You don't have to be the type of people that reads bankruptcy filings all the time to be interested in this. There's some really funny stuff in there. Like, for example, their process for expenses was apparently to post something in a Slack channel, and then some not clearly defined set of people would give it a thumbs up or some other emoji to say that it was approved or not. And I thought it was really funny. You work for a 3 people small business and you have a more strict expense reporting process than that. Then the whole thing about like buying houses for employees and all of that, it's just wild. So I think we're going to keep hearing about this for the next few weeks or months with more and more details. It really sounds like a 10-episode Netflix special in the making right before our eyes.
Hulu's the one that does all these. They did the Adam WeWork
Theranos
one.
was on Hulu in the States. I think it was on Disney Plus here.
It was Hulu here.
Yeah, so that's definitely going to happen in a few years.
It's craziness. All right, and we got a few squirrel stories here that we'll cover real quick. The first one, story number 37 here, I'm just going to cover briefly. I actually watched a whole hour and 10-minute talk by this guy. He's a professor at UC Berkeley, Nicholas Weaver. Big, outspoken anti-cryptocurrency guy, has some really good points. I think maybe it's better to read an interview with him. I found listening to him a little harsh. Not because the things he was saying was harsh, but he's drinking a soda through it, and the all the sloshing of the soda gets and the slurping gets picked up by the microphone. It was it was a bit rough to listen to if you're triggered by slurping ASMR, like I apparently am. But he's very geeky. Makes a lot of jokes that are going to make you groan, but has some very, very good points, and very comprehensive coverage of why cryptocurrency doesn't make sense. The downsides of, and he does hit on some of the upsides and some of the advantages of it as well. But that's a very short list. And then the last one here, I don't even know how to pronounce the name of this company, but you kind of have to click it and go to the LinkedIn post.
Is it Lemon Tricks?
Lemon Tricks. That works for me.
I'm going to place my bets on Lemon Tricks. $5 Canadian.
It looks like a company I would buy cheap gloves from on Amazon. Like, the Chinese company that just have random characters as the name of the company. That sell
I thought those were Roman numerals. It's not a number?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's anyway, it's an interesting post because they are an MDR MSSP company, and the post is kind of making fun of MSSPs, and the criticism is valid, but it's a bold move. They got to be really good to be able to pull off this level of shade throwing, I think.
Yeah, it's easier to throw shade when you don't have any skin in the game, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know anything about this company, how young they are, California-based company. Yeah, I don't know. What'd you call it? Lemon Trick?
I was hoping that on their About Us page they would have a pronunciation, but they don't.
Yeah. So last time
we're just gonna call it Lemon Tricks forever. That's decided.
Okay.
I hope it's really wrong, because then it's much funnier. But maybe it's right.
Oh my God! Have you seen the website?
I'm on the website.
Oh boy, that front page, Guillaume, have you seen it?
Boy.
No. Oh wow! There's a radar, the XDR radar.
Move
Zero
your mouse
hype
around.
at the bottom left. Oh.
Zero hype.
Yeah.
What is this front page if not hype? Oh my God.
And they've got a faux Rubik's cube, and
What
Is
is
this
following my mouse
Flash?
cursor around?
Reminds me of Flash websites
Is
from the
this
past.
Flash?
Oh, they've
And-
got the iceberg underwater too. The bigger iceberg underwater.
Oh boy. That's a lot. That's yeah, glass houses, folks. Glass houses.
There's a hard drive,
What
like spinning metal hard drive at some point, which is pretty cool. Haven't seen one of those in a while.
They claim to do a lot of stuff. If you hit the what we do at the top, like that's a big list of stuff.
That it is a big list of stuff, and their story is actually quite long as well.
Lemon Tricks
Because-
aligns with Gartner. That's comforting.
Well, I mean,
I have so much more confidence now. We
Oh,
can
I
throw
just-
shade too.
yeah, we can throw shade too. You know, but my glass house is much smaller.
Yeah.
I also, with my funky finger, clicked on something and I have the code to their site and I can't make it go away.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean it's not the worst we've seen, but yeah, I mean it's kind of like I was hoping we moved past like the pew pew map kind of age of InfoSec. And what was that Colorado-based company that hired the Tron designer to do their UI? ProtectWise. ProtectWise. If you remember that UI, it was very much like the front page of this website.
Yeah, remember that dashboard very clearly. I could probably draw it.
Oh, really? I remember it had the type of graph. I remember we used to call like a toilet bowl graph because it was a swirl.
Yeah, exactly. There's like two of those. The two toilet graph.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Why did you go to toilet instead of like soft serve? Come on.
But do you think it spins the other way around in Australia though?
But because it was actively spinning. Yeah, you have to update the UI so that south of the equator it spins in the other direction, right?
Yep.
All right. I think that's as silly as we need to get with this one, but yeah, I mean, I like seeing marketing kind of getting their elbows out, and I think we need to talk a little bit more honestly about some of the stuff. Yeah, MSSPs I still have kind of a hard time with. From direct firsthand experience testing them on behalf of customers, definitely did not instill a lot of confidence in this part of the market. I'm sure there's good ones out there. I just haven't encountered it. All right. And on that note, thanks so much.
And on that note, I just don't know what to say anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Katie and Guillaume for joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, extra thanks to Guillaume for he found out he was going to be co-host on this podcast less than an hour before we went. So
yeah, I was literally hooking up the microphone like 1 minute before joining. Yep.
Heroic effort. We appreciate it. That is how we roll. Yeah, we can handle last minute stuff and still pull off a good show. All right. Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Are we going to be back next week, or is next week Thanksgiving? We will not be back.
I'm going to be in tryptophan coma.
Yep. Likely me too. And we will be back on December 1st. So taking a week off for Thanksgiving. Hope you folks, if you celebrate a holiday next week, enjoy the time off. Time with family and friends. We're thankful for all of you, and we'll see you in December when we come back.